All right, what is going on, everybody? Got a bit of a different video, a bit of a drama-filled video, a video about Stephen A. Smith, ESPN sports pundit, political pundit, talking head, whatever you want to call Stephen A. He's been in the space a long time, also a journalist, and LeBron James, Los Angeles Lakers superstar, NBA legend. If you aren't in the know, they've been going at it for like maybe a month now. And yesterday, LeBron James went on the Pat McAfee show on ESPN, and he did a whole interview, answered a lot of questions, and he said a lot of, I don't even want to say controversial things because it's his opinion, and he just says what he knows. But it kind of devolved back into going at Stephen A. Smith, and I didn't want to talk about this, but I just really couldn't get my mind off of it. So I decided, why not make a video? Why not just talk about it? If you like what I have to say, like the video. If you have your own opinions, comment them down below. And if you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. This is going to be a complete free ball. Um, just my opinions and stuff. To be very clear right off the top, I did not watch the whole interview of LeBron James on the Pat McAfee show. Um, I've only watched the clips, so I'm not going to lie to you guys and act like I watched the whole hour-long interview. It's one thing to watch the Pat McAfee show, who's a little insufferable. It's another thing to watch LeBron James talk. I do like LeBron James podcasts and hear him talk. So at some point, I will watch the full hour-long interview. But at the point of recording this video, I have not. So I just want to make that completely transparent. And I really don't even want to talk about the interview as much. I want to talk about some of the things he said, but I don't want to get too deep into something that I have nothing about. I don't like watching clips and making an opinion based off the clips. I think you have to watch the whole episode or whatever for the context of the clip. So just right off the top, that's all I wanted to say. But for those not in the know, um, Stephen A. Smith, a very, I guess he is controversial or just what's the word I'm looking for? Viral. He's viral. He's viral before viral was a thing, right? Very viral sports pundit, and he's been doing this a long time. He was a journalist before he was on ESPN. He's the highest paid, um, I guess, pundit on ESPN, and he has some okay takes. He has some bad takes, but you have to do that in TV. In TV, it's always so quick. It's always so whatever. And in that being said, Stephen A. Smith, the last couple months, has been very critical of LeBron James' son, Bronny James. Well, I think a lot of people have been critical of for the right or the wrong reasons. And I guess at some point, LeBron felt it was a little too personal that Stephen A. was attacking him as a father and saying he wasn't doing the best for Bronny, whatever the case is. And LeBron went right up to him. I guess it was like a couple weeks ago, a month ago at this point, at a Laker game. Um, it was third quarter. It was a timeout. LeBron just walked up on Stephen A. Smith and just said, from his account, from Stephen A. Smith's account, "Hey, don't talk about my son. Da da da. That's my son. Da da da. Whatever." Right? He was very mad, and LeBron James walked away, and that was that. And they went back and forth a little bit on social media, or Stephen A. Smith sort of capitalized on the moment and made some videos about it, made some tweets about it, whatever the case may be. We all thought it was done. It was like, okay, LeBron went up to him, cool. At a point, I understand it from LeBron James' perspective, like, hey, that's my son. Don't talk about my son. Don't talk about me being a bad father. Whatever, right? On the other side, I don't agree with what Stephen A. said to a point, but I think when you're LeBron, you sort of have to realize that. And I'm not defending what Stephen A. Smith said, but I think when you're LeBron, you sort of you have to take some ownership of that and say, hey, I not you, but like we made the decision as the James family, as everybody made the decision. Hey, Bronny should last year. This was a conversation they had last year. Probably was he should go to the NBA, right? But you have to realize in going to the NBA and Bronny not performing well and all these things that happened to Bronny previously to being in the NBA, you set yourself up for these people to go after you. They've been going after LeBron for 20 years. Or they've been trying to go after him, right? And you sort of put a target on your own son's back. Not because of your name, not because of whatever, because of the situation you put him in the sense of Bronny probably needed another year of college because he didn't get the full year of college because he had a medical issue, right? So you push him to go to the NBA a little early. He doesn't play well basically the whole season, and then he has a great game the other night in the G League. He had 37 points, and you just sort of you set yourself up. You set him up to not fail, but like be looked at in a light where it's just like you didn't put him in the best situation as LeBron James, as the James family, as Clutch Sports, LeBron James's talent agency ran by his business associate Rich Paul. You didn't put Bronny in the best situation. From that perspective, I can understand the criticism and the criticism of Bronny's game. With all that out of the way, we'll get to what happened yesterday. LeBron James and the Lakers were in town to play the Pacers. LeBron decides out of nowhere to hop on the Pat McAfee show. Pat McAfee, ex NFL player turned ESPN media pundit, based in Indianapolis. And LeBron James says, let me go on the show. So he goes on the show. Looks like he was having a great time. Again, said some interesting things. Um, and I think one of the most damning things he said about another ESPN, not pundit but reporter, somebody who's been covering LeBron James for a long time. LeBron James said, see if I can find the quote for you. LeBron James had this to say on the Pat McAfee show. He said, "This guy who says he's my best fucking friend, these guys are just weird." He said that about Brian Windhorst. Um, and from my knowledge and from everybody's knowledge, um, Brian Windhorst never claimed to be LeBron James' best friend. He just simply went to the same school as LeBron James High School, and he's been covering him for the longest time. And I remember growing up, I remember hearing things about LeBron, and this is like when Twitter was first popping and everything. And you would hear rumors about LeBron and this and that. And said, I always said to myself, I don't believe it unless Brian Windhorst says it. And Brian Windhorst was the authority on LeBron James, hasn't been the authority so much in the last 5, 6 years. Sort of distanced himself from that. Brian Windhorst did, but LeBron James saying this about an ESPN reporter. Um, some people claim he was talking about somebody else. Um, I don't know that for a fact. I can't confirm or deny if LeBron was talking about somebody else, but uh, it that was said, and then it came back to Stephen A. Smith, who Stephen A. Smith is very obviously protective of everybody that he works with in at ESPN because he is the guy. Stephen A. Smith is the guy at ESPN. And Stephen A. Smith came to the defense of Brian Windhorst and reiterated the things I said, or I reiterated the things Stephen A. Smith said, in that Brian Windhorst never claimed to be LeBron James' friend. He just his claim to fame. Brian Windhorst's claim to fame was he went to the same school. He just so happened to have the opportunity to catch LeBron right as he was beginning his career, right as he ascended into stardom, and piggybacked on that. And what better person to know you or pretend to know you, or not even pretend to know you, just be in the area around you to report on you than a guy who's been around you that long. You know what I mean? So it's just it was sort of damning that LeBron James just said these things. It was one of the many things he said. Um, there's other things that were said, um, but again, I didn't watch the full video, so I'm not gonna act like I know what he said. And to LeBron James's not defense, but I guess like give him leeway is that LeBron James has never done anything like this. He has never gone on a show and just shot the shit with somebody and just let it all out. He's been on a couple shows. He's been on a couple podcasts. He was on Road Tripping with Richard Jefferson, a former teammate, Channing Frye, a former teammate, and they talked it up. This was like 2021, so this was like 4 years ago. I remember watching that, and it was fun to watch LeBron James just talk. But he's never been this blunt and this honest about like the people he dislikes, the things that he dislikes, and it's this is the main crux of this video, and why I want to make this video, and why I'm not diving too deep into the story or the podcast or whatever the the show that LeBron James did with Pat McAfee. I think both Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James are flying way too close to the sun on this. They are flying way too close to the sun. And what I mean by that is that this fight has become, or this online battle, or it's an online battle at this point. They only looked each other in the eyes once, and that was like a month ago at this point. They're just it's too personal. It's too personal. They're both in their feelings. They're both overreacting to things, and it's a big thing because obviously LeBron James one of the biggest in the sport, and Stephen A. Smith one of the biggest in covering said sport. It's going to be a big news. It's going to be a headline, right? Both both people have teams that, or team not teams, fans that like them, and and nobody's going to change their mind. I think it's I think it's I'll say it. I think it's shameful for LeBron to just say shit. Just say shit. Just say it when being factually incorrect. And Stephen A. Smith often says things that are factually incorrect too. But for LeBron, his fans are so ride or die. They're so, I don't want to say brainwashed. It's like a cult. We'll say a cult for lack of a better term. It's such a cult that like whatever LeBron James says, it's gospel, right? It's true. Nothing. He's never done anything wrong. And to this point in LeBron James's career and through his personal life and everything, he's never done anything wrong. Clean record. I would say to LeBron, I would be very careful about going after the media, because like it or not, the media does control stories that go in and out. And I'm not going to say them here, but there are things that have been speculated about LeBron James that have not been proven true, and they've been buried and buried and buried. Um, nothing illegal, but something that would be pretty damning to his career. I think LeBron James should be very careful about turning on the media or just addressing the media in general to a point that like you're just making up stuff about people. You know, well, not making stuff. You're embellishing stuff to the extreme. I think I think it's very dangerous to do that. And to Stephen A. Smith, I think in being a sports pundit and being a talking head and being on the worldwide leader in sports that ESPN once was, not so much anymore. Um, I think it's. I think. I think Stephen A's gift has always been saying it like it is and sort of kind of keeping it on topic. And I've always said that these topics that come up on his show First Take or whatever, they're fed to him, right? They're they are, how do you say, predetermined, right? It's probably not what Stephen A wants to talk about, but it's what ESPN as a company and the producers think people want to hear. So he'll just go out there and do it, right? And it's made him $100 million man, right? He's the most paid person at ESPN. But I think when you start to get into, just throw yourself entirely into a battle with somebody you're not going to win against. Neither of these sides are gonna change their mind. People have come to the defense of Stephen A. Smith. People have come to the defense of Brian Windhorst, um, former teammate of LeBron James, Kendrick Perkins, said LeBron James just needs to not address the media like in this capacity. Obviously, you have to still talk to the media because you're an NBA player, but not get too personal, get too deep into it. I think it's I think that's a smart way to look at it, but I think also it goes both ways. The media coverage of not just LeBron James, but basketball as a whole has been so diminished and so like just it's been so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's been so just grimy recently. It's been like since 2020, since you know the thing that happened and the world shut down. Since then, it's the coverage of basketball, not just the NBA, but basketball has become diluted. And there are some people who I think are a part of the problem. I think the biggest problem, and this is a whole different video, is ESPN's coverage of basketball. It's for clips, it's for clicks. It's not for an actual like discussion of the game or basketball. It's just about for the views and the money and this and that. And Stephen A. Smith is a part of that. A lot of people are a part of that. Obviously, ESPN is owned by Disney, and they've been chomping up every bit of NBA media they can. Anybody that will talk about basketball, they'll take essentially. Some of them very good, some of them very bad. Obviously, ESPN, if you don't know, has cut ties with the MLB. They're not going to show a lot of games. Um, they're shutting down their Los Angeles studios. And it feels like next year they're going all in on the NBA. They're going to try to make it a watchable product. And I hope it works out. But at the same time, the last 5 years has not shown that they know how to bring in people to watch morning shows about basketball, pre-game shows about basketball, mid-game shows about basketball, post-game shows about basketball. They haven't shown they can put together a product. And this is diving into a whole different video I could make, but I think this LeBron James, Stephen A. Smith stuff, if I haven't said already, it's stupid. I think both sides just need to walk away. I don't think it does anything positive for basketball. I don't think it does anything positive for the coverage of basketball. I don't think it does anything positive for either one of these parties. I just think it's stupid. I genuinely just think it's stupid. And LeBron James has said it's gotten away from the essence of the sport of basketball. And to that point, I agree. But stuff like this infighting, you don't have to be best friends with the media. NBA players don't need to be best friends with the media, whatever, and vice versa. You don't need to be best friends. It's a job. You're both working a job. There are people at jobs that I've had that I didn't like, and I assume it's a lot harder when you're when somebody is judging you for a sport you play and they've never played or they've only covered or they've only watched. And the same way, an NBA player has never been a journalist or never been a or certain players that are playing right now have never been on ESPN covering the sport daily as a retired player. It goes both ways. So that's the video essentially. I just think it's so silly and so fruitless and so it's not even childish because it's so personal on a personal level, and they're both taking digs at each other, and this is probably going to go on until the weekend, and it will probably die by this time next week. But I just think it's so silly. It's so silly, and I think this is what my last thought is. I think this is what NBA media has devolved into is just people that cover the game hating on people that play the game, and people that play the game won't take responsibility for ruining the game at points, but they also won't, but the coverage of it won't promote the good things that they've done. So it's a back and forth that nobody's ever going to win unless the whole thing changes. There are things that go on in the NBA that should be talked about more, smaller teams that should be talked about more, or better stories than talking about who's the GOAT, who's the greatest of all time every other week. It's exhausting, it's boring, and I think to a point, I think some NBA players enjoy hearing about basketball, listening about basketball. When they have to hear the same motorcycle topics or my name's in the media and I have to hear about it every week, I would get pretty exhausted as LeBron James or any other NBA player hearing it every week as well. So that's it. That was that was. I'm still shaking my head about it. It's just it's just wild. I have first take up right now, and I'm just watching the ticker go by. Um, it's gonna it's gonna it's gonna go on into the weekend, and I just hope this thing blows over. It's just so silly. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see y'all next time. Cheers.